The small-town grocery store buzzed with the usual hum of activity, though it was far from busy. Shelves were neatly stocked, and sunlight streamed through the large front windows, casting warm golden streaks across the tiled floor. Among the shoppers was Amara, a young pregnant woman whose presence seemed to radiate both strength and calmness. Her hands rested gently on her rounded belly as she pushed her cart down the aisles, carefully selecting items for dinner that evening. Amara had lived in this town for years but never felt completely at home. She often noticed how some people would glance at her, or worse, avoid looking at her altogether. It wasn't something she talked about much, but it lingered in the back of her mind like an unwelcome shadow. Today, however, she tried not to let those thoughts weigh her down. She focused instead on the little life growing inside her, humming softly as she reached for a box of pasta. At the checkout counter stood Mr. Grayson, the store's head cashier. He was a middle-aged man with thinning hair and a stern expression that rarely softened, even when greeting customers. As Amara approached his line, he looked up briefly before returning to organizing receipts. There were only 2 other people ahead of her, so she patiently waited, adjusting the scarf draped over her shoulders. When it was finally her turn, Amara placed her groceries onto the conveyor belt one by one. She greeted Mr. Grayson politely, hoping for a nod or smile in return. Instead, his eyes narrowed suspiciously as they scanned each item. His demeanor shifted almost imperceptibly, but Amara noticed. Something about the way he tapped the scanner repeatedly made her feel uneasy. "Ma'am," Mr. Grayson said abruptly, breaking the silence. "Do you have any additional bags or pockets where you might have placed something?" Amara blinked, caught off guard by the question. "No, sir," she replied evenly, clutching the edge of the counter. "Everything I bought is right here." Mr. Grayson hesitated, then leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "I need to check your bag. Store policy." A ripple of discomfort ran through Amara's body. She glanced around, suddenly aware of the curious stares from nearby shoppers. Her cheeks flushed, but she forced herself to stay composed. "My bag? Why?" she asked, trying to keep her tone steady despite the rising tension. "It's just procedure," Mr. Grayson insisted, his voice firmer now. "We've had issues lately, and I'm required to ensure everything matches the receipt." Amara tightened her grip on the cart handle, feeling a mix of anger and humiliation bubbling beneath the surface. This wasn't the first time someone had treated her unfairly, but being singled out while carrying her unborn child felt especially cruel. Still, she reminded herself to stay calm, for her baby's sake. "I understand," she said slowly, meeting his gaze. "But I haven't done anything wrong. If you'd like to verify, I'm happy to wait while you double-check my receipt against the items." Her polite yet firm response seemed to throw Mr. Grayson off balance. For a moment he hesitated, glancing at the growing crowd behind her. Some shoppers whispered among themselves, while others watched silently, unsure what to make of the situation. Amara could feel their eyes on her, judging, speculating, yet she refused to shrink under their scrutiny. As the tension escalated, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the store. A tall figure entered the scene, a man with broad shoulders and a commanding presence. Amara recognized him immediately. It was Marcus, her husband. Marcus had been running late after finishing work and decided to meet Amara at the store to help carry the groceries. But as he approached the checkout counter, taking in the standoff between his wife and the cashier, his expression darkened. Whatever warmth had been in his eyes moments ago vanished, replaced by a fierce protectiveness. Without hesitation, Marcus stepped beside Amara, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. His voice was calm but carried an undeniable edge. "Is there a problem here?" The room seemed to freeze. Everyone turned their attention to Marcus, sensing that the dynamics of the situation had shifted dramatically. Even Mr. Grayson appeared uneasy, fumbling with the scanner as if searching for words. And just like that, everything changed. Marcus's voice cut through the tension like a sharp blade, demanding attention. His presence alone seemed to fill the space around him, and the once muted hum of the store fell into an uneasy silence. Amara glanced at her husband, relief washing over her features, though she remained poised and dignified. She didn't want Marcus to feel the need to shield her entirely. She had always prided herself on handling difficult situations with grace. But there was no denying the comfort his arrival brought. Mr. Grayson cleared his throat, clearly flustered by the sudden shift in dynamics. "Sir," he began, attempting to regain control of the situation, "I was just explaining our store policy to your wife. We've been experiencing some discrepancies lately, and I needed to verify her purchase." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable but undeniably intense. "Discrepancies?" he repeated slowly, as if testing the weight of the word. "You mean theft?" The cashier hesitated, his fingers tapping nervously against the counter. "Well, yes. It's nothing personal, of course, just routine checks." "Routine checks," Marcus echoed, his tone dripping with skepticism. He gestured toward the other customers waiting in line, many of whom were now watching intently. "Are you asking them to empty their bags too? Or is this routine check reserved for certain people?" Amara placed a gentle hand on Marcus's arm, silently urging him to stay calm. She appreciated his protectiveness but knew that escalating the confrontation could make things worse. Still, she couldn't help but feel a spark of pride at how confidently he stood by her side. Marcus wasn't one to back down from injustice, and today was no exception. Mr. Grayson shifted uncomfortably under Marcus's piercing gaze. "Look, sir, I'm only following protocol." "Protocol?" Marcus interrupted, his voice rising slightly. "Let me tell you something about protocol. My wife walked into this store, picked out groceries for our family, and paid for every single item. She didn't deserve to be treated like a criminal simply because she exists." The words hung heavy in the air, resonating not just with Amara and Marcus but also with the growing audience of shoppers. Some nodded subtly in agreement, while others exchanged uncomfortable glances. One elderly woman near the front murmured, "He's right," though she quickly looked away when Mr. Grayson shot her a glare. Amara stepped forward then, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "If you'd like to verify my receipt, Mr. Grayson, I'm happy to wait. But accusing me without cause and in front of everyone here is unacceptable. You're embarrassing yourself more than anyone else." Her quiet confidence struck a nerve. Mr. Grayson's face reddened. Whether from embarrassment or frustration, it was hard to tell. He grabbed the receipt printer and hastily tore off a slip of paper, handing it to her. "Here's your receipt," he muttered gruffly. "Take it and go." But Marcus wasn't ready to let it drop so easily. "No," he said firmly, crossing his arms over his chest. "That's not good enough. What you did here today wasn't just rude, it was discriminatory. And if you think we're leaving without addressing this, you're mistaken." Amara tugged gently at Marcus's sleeve, whispering, "Let's not give him more power over us. Let's handle this the right way." Her words carried a quiet wisdom that made Marcus pause. After a moment, he exhaled deeply, nodding reluctantly. Turning back to Mr. Grayson, Marcus spoke with measured calmness. "We'll be taking this up with the store manager, and if necessary, higher authorities. This kind of behavior won't be tolerated." With that, Marcus took the receipt from Amara's hand and guided her toward the exit, leaving behind a stunned cashier and a room full of murmuring spectators. As they pushed open the glass doors and stepped outside, Amara felt a mix of emotions swirling within her: anger, sadness, and even a flicker of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this moment could spark change, not just for her, but for others who had faced similar injustices. Little did they know, their actions were about to set off a chain reaction far beyond what either of them could have anticipated. The cool evening breeze greeted Amara and Marcus as they stepped out of the store, but neither felt any relief. The weight of what had just happened still lingered heavily between them. They stood by their car for a moment, both processing the encounter in silence. Finally, Marcus broke it. "We can't let this slide," he said firmly, his jaw tight with determination. "Not today, not ever." Amara nodded, her dark eyes reflecting a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and resolve. "I know," she replied, softly. "But we have to handle this carefully. I don't want us to become part of the drama. I want us to be part of the solution." Marcus looked at her, admiration softening his features. Even in moments like these, Amara always managed to rise above the chaos. Her strength was one of the many things he loved about her. "You're right," he agreed. "Let's talk to the manager first. If they refuse to listen, then we'll take it further." With renewed purpose, the couple returned to the store. This time, instead of heading back to the checkout area, they approached the customer service desk near the entrance. A young employee, seated there, glanced up nervously when she saw them approaching. Word of the earlier confrontation must have spread quickly among the staff. "Can I help you?" the girl asked hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Marcus replied, his tone polite but firm. "We'd like to speak with the store manager immediately. It's urgent." The employee hesitated, clearly unsure how to respond, before nodding and picking up the phone. After a brief conversation, she gestured toward a door labeled Manager's Office at the far end of the store. "They're expecting you," she said meekly. Amara and Marcus exchanged a glance before walking toward the office. Inside, they found a middle-aged woman sitting behind a cluttered desk. She introduced herself as Ms. Carter, the store manager, and motioned for them to take a seat. Her demeanor was professional but guarded, as if bracing herself for conflict. "I understand there was an issue at the checkout counter earlier," Ms. Carter began, cutting straight to the point. Marcus wasted no time explaining what had happened: the unnecessary accusation, the public humiliation, and the discriminatory undertones of Mr. Grayson's actions. Amara added her perspective, emphasizing how such behavior affected not only her, but also others who might face similar treatment. Ms. Carter listened intently, occasionally jotting notes on a pad of paper. When they finished speaking, she leaned back in her chair, exhaling deeply. "I see," she said slowly. "This is troubling. I assure you, this is not the kind of environment we strive to create here." Amara raised an eyebrow, skeptical, yet hopeful. "Then what will you do about it?" she asked pointedly. Ms. Carter hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "First, I'll speak with Mr. Grayson directly. If what you've described is accurate, and I have no reason to doubt your account, he'll face disciplinary action. That much I can promise." Marcus crossed his arms, unconvinced. "And beyond that, what steps are you taking to ensure something like this doesn't happen again?" The question hung in the air, challenging Ms. Carter to go beyond mere apologies. She seemed to consider it deeply before responding. "We'll review our policies and provide additional training for all employees on sensitivity and fairness. But honestly, lasting change requires effort from everyone, not just management." Amara leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. "Change starts somewhere," she said quietly. "Maybe this is where it begins. For us, for you, and for this community." As they left the office, Amara and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something bigger. Little did they know, their courage would soon inspire others to speak up too. By the time Amara and Marcus left the store, word of their confrontation with Mr. Grayson had spread like wildfire through the small town. Social media played its part too. Someone had discreetly filmed parts of the exchange at the checkout counter, capturing both Amara's quiet dignity and Marcus's fierce defense of his wife. Within hours, snippets of the video were circulating online, accompanied by hashtags like "Fair Treatment for All" and "Stand with Amara." At first, Amara felt uneasy about the sudden attention. She wasn't one to seek the spotlight, preferring instead to live her life quietly and focus on her growing family. But as comments poured in, from neighbors, friends, and even strangers expressing support, she began to see the bigger picture. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about standing up against injustice wherever it occurred. Marcus, on the other hand, embraced the momentum wholeheartedly. "People need to know this happens," he told Amara later that evening as They sat together on their porch watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. If we stay silent, nothing changes. But if we speak up, maybe others will too. Amara nodded thoughtfully, resting her hands on her belly. There, baby kicked gently as if agreeing with Marcus's words. You're right, she said after a moment. But speaking up isn't enough. We have to push for real change, starting here in our own community. The next morning they woke to find messages flooding their phones. Friends and acquaintances reached out to share their own stories of being treated unfairly because of their race, gender, or appearance. Some recounted similar experiences at the same grocery store, while others spoke of discrimination in workplaces, schools, and public spaces. Each message added fuel to the fire burning within Amara and Marcus. Determined to channel this energy into action, they decided to organize a peaceful gathering outside the store. They called it a Day for Dignity, inviting residents to come together and discuss ways to foster respect and equality in their community. Flyers were printed and distributed throughout the town, and social media posts amplified the call to action. On the day of the event, the turnout exceeded all expectations. Dozens of people gathered in the parking lot outside the store, holding signs that read, "Respect starts here and equality for everyone." Among them were familiar faces, neighbors, co-workers, and local leaders, as well as newcomers eager to lend their voices to the cause. Amara stood at the center of the crowd, holding a microphone borrowed from a friend. Her heart raced as she prepared to address the group, but when she looked around and saw so many supportive faces, her nerves calmed. "Thank you all for coming today," she began, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "This isn't just about me or my family. It's about every person who has ever been made to feel less than human because of how they look, where they come from, or what they believe. It's about saying no to fear and yes to understanding." The crowd erupted in applause, cheering her on. Marcus stood nearby, beaming with pride as he watched his wife inspire those around her. When Amara handed the microphone to others, more stories emerged. Some heartbreaking, some hopeful, but all united by a shared desire for change. As the sun dipped below the horizon, lighting up the sky once again, a sense of hope filled the air. For the first time in a long while, Amara felt like they were truly making progress, not just for themselves, but for everyone who deserved to live without fear of judgment or mistreatment. Little did they know, their efforts would soon catch the attention of someone far beyond their small town, a person whose influence could take their movement to new heights. In the days following A Day for Dignity, Amara and Marcus found themselves at the center of an unexpected whirlwind. News outlets picked up the story, drawn not only by the viral video but also by the grassroots movement it had sparked. Interviews poured in from local radio stations, newspapers, and even regional television networks. At first, Amara hesitated to step into the spotlight further, fearing that too much attention might dilute the message they were trying to convey. But Marcus reminded her gently, "This is bigger than us now. If we can amplify the voices of others through this platform, isn't it worth it?" Reluctantly, Amara agreed. Together they appeared on a morning talk show broadcast across the state. Sitting side by side on the studio couch, they spoke candidly about their experience at the grocery store, the emotional toll of discrimination, and the importance of standing together as a community. Amara's calm yet passionate demeanor resonated deeply with viewers, while Marcus's protective energy added a layer of strength to their narrative. The segment aired live, and within minutes, social media exploded once again. This time, however, the conversation expanded beyond their small town. People from neighboring cities and even other states began sharing their own stories of injustice, tagging the hashtag #StandWithAmara. Among the countless messages flooding in was one that stood out. A direct message from a prominent civil rights advocate named Elena Morales. Elena was known nationwide for her work promoting equality and justice. She had spent decades fighting systemic discrimination and empowering marginalized communities. Her message was simple yet profound. "Your courage inspires me. Let's talk about how we can turn your movement into lasting change." Amara read the message aloud to Marcus, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Do you think she really means it?" she asked, still unsure if they were ready to take their efforts to such a grand scale. Marcus grinned, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "Of course she does. This is exactly what we've been waiting for, an opportunity to make real, meaningful progress." They scheduled a call with Elena later that week. When the day arrived, Amara and Marcus sat nervously in their living room, phones in hand as they connected with the legendary advocate via video chat. Elena's warm smile immediately put them at ease. "I want to commend both of you for what you've done so far," Elena began, her tone sincere. "You've ignited something powerful, a spark that has the potential to become a wildfire of positive change. But movements like this need structure, resources, and guidance to grow sustainably. That's where I come in." Over the next hour, Elena outlined a plan to elevate their cause. She proposed organizing workshops, partnering with legal experts to address discriminatory practices, and collaborating with schools and businesses to implement diversity training programs. Most importantly, she emphasized keeping the focus on amplifying the voices of those directly affected by injustice. "We'll start locally," Elena explained. "But the goal is to expand this initiative statewide, and eventually nationwide. Imagine creating safe spaces for dialogue, education, and action everywhere. You two could be the catalysts for that vision." By the end of the call, Amara and Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. What had begun as a personal struggle against prejudice was now evolving into something far greater. A mission to create a world where no one would have to endure what they had faced. As they hung up, Amara turned to Marcus, tears glistening in her eyes. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" Marcus took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Yes, we are. And we're not alone anymore." Unbeknownst to them, their journey was about to gain even more momentum and challenge them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. With Elena Morales now guiding their efforts, Amara and Marcus dove headfirst into turning their grassroots movement into a structured initiative. They named it Voices for Dignity, a name that reflected their mission to uplift those who had been silenced by prejudice and discrimination. Workshops were planned, partnerships formed, and community meetings organized, all with the goal of fostering understanding and creating tangible change. But as their influence grew, so did the challenges they faced. Not everyone in their small town or beyond was supportive of their efforts. Some dismissed Voices for Dignity as unnecessary, arguing that things weren't that bad, or accusing them of stirring up trouble where none existed. Others launched personal attacks against Amara and Marcus, spreading rumors online and questioning their motives. One particularly hurtful incident occurred during a community meeting at the local library. A man stood up abruptly, his face flushed with anger, and shouted, "Why are you making such a big deal out of one little incident? People make mistakes. Why don't you just let it go?" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Amara. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding, but refused to let fear take hold. Standing tall, she responded calmly, "Because one little incident isn't just about me. It's about every person who has ever felt unseen, unheard, or disrespected. If we stay silent, nothing changes. But if we speak up together, we can build a better future." Her words earned applause from many in the room, but the tension lingered. Outside, critics continued to voice their opposition, some even showing up at events holding signs that read, "Focus on real issues," or "Leave our town alone." It was clear that not everyone welcomed the changes Voices for Dignity sought to bring. Despite these obstacles, Amara and Marcus pressed on, leaning on each other and the growing network of supporters around them. Elena proved invaluable during this time, offering advice on how to handle backlash and reminding them that resistance often signaled progress. "Change is uncomfortable," she told them over another video call. "But discomfort is where growth happens." As weeks turned into months, their hard work began to bear fruit. Local businesses started implementing diversity training programs, schools introduced anti-bias curriculums, and residents engaged in open dialogues about privilege and fairness. Slowly but surely, the tide seemed to be shifting. Then came an unexpected twist. One evening, as Amara scrolled through social media, she stumbled upon a post from someone she least expected, Mr. Grayson, the cashier who had sparked the entire chain of events. In the post, he wrote a lengthy apology, admitting that his actions toward Amara had been wrong and expressing regret for any harm he had caused. He also revealed that he had enrolled in sensitivity training and hoped to do better moving forward. Amara stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. On one hand, she appreciated the effort. On the other, she knew apologies couldn't undo the pain he and others like him had inflicted. When she showed the post to Marcus, he simply said, "It's not about forgiving him, it's about whether he truly learns and grows from this." That night, as Amara lay in bed, her mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. They had come so far, yet there was still so much work to be done. Little did they know, their biggest test was yet to come, a challenge that would force them to confront their deepest fears while proving the strength of their resolve. The fight for dignity was far from over. The turning point came unexpectedly. On a crisp autumn morning that painted the town in shades of gold and crimson, Amara and Marcus had been invited to speak at a statewide conference organized by Elena Morales titled, "Building Bridges, A Path Toward Equality." The event brought together activists, educators, business leaders, and community members from across the region, all united by a shared vision of creating a more inclusive society. For Amara, standing on stage in front of hundreds of people felt surreal. Just months ago, she had been an ordinary woman trying to navigate the challenges of pregnancy while dealing with prejudice. Now she was a symbol of resilience and hope for countless others. As she looked out at the sea of faces, she felt both humbled and empowered. "This journey hasn't been easy," she began, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "There were days when I wanted to give up, when the weight of criticism and resistance felt unbearable. But through it all, I realized something important. Change doesn't happen because it's easy. It happens because it's necessary." She went on to share their story, the confrontation at the grocery store, the ripple effect it created, and the challenges they faced along the way. She spoke about the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity and reminded everyone that true progress required collective effort. When Marcus joined her on stage, the audience erupted into applause. Together, they unveiled a new initiative called Dignity in Action, designed to provide resources and support for communities tackling discrimination. Schools would receive toolkits for fostering inclusivity, businesses would be encouraged to adopt equitable hiring practices, and individuals would have access to platforms where they could safely share their experiences. As the presentation concluded, Elena stepped forward to thank them, her eyes glistening with pride. "Amara and Marcus remind us that courage is contagious," she said, addressing the crowd. "Their story shows us that even the smallest act of defiance can spark monumental change." But the day wasn't without its surprises. During the EI Q&A session, a young woman named Tessa approached the microphone, visibly nervous. "I just want to say thank you," she began, her voice trembling. "Your story gave me the strength to speak up after years of staying silent. Because of you, I finally confronted my own experience with discrimination, and now I'm working to help others do the same." Her words moved Amara to tears. For the first time, she fully grasped the impact of what they had started. This wasn't just their fight anymore. It belonged to everyone who believed in dignity, respect, and equality. Later that evening, as Amara and Marcus walked hand in hand under a starlit sky, they reflected on how far they'd come. "We've planted seeds," Marcus said softly. "Now it's up to everyone else to nurture them." Amara nodded, resting her head against his shoulder. "And we'll keep watering ours too," she replied, placing a hand on her belly. Their baby would grow up in a world shaped by love, courage, and the relentless pursuit of justice, a legacy they were proud to leave behind. Though the road ahead would still hold challenges, one thing was certain: Amara and Marcus had ignited a flame that no amount of darkness could extinguish. And in doing so, they had proven that even the smallest voices could echo endlessly when raised with purpose. The end.